Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Welcome back. I got my package from the newest Lawn Fawn release. I picked up the Simply Celebrate More Critters with the coordinating dies, as well as the add-on and then the All the Party Hats stamp set with the dies. These are absolutely adorable and I was so excited to create with these. I had to immediately pull everything out and get my camera set up. So we're going to be making a really fun farm themed card. We're going to be bringing in Henry's ABCs. I thought about adding in the strawberries, but they just didn't fit for this one. So I do have another plan for strawberries with this stamp set, just not with these specific critters. So keep an eye out for that later. I'm going to be going in with the pink gingham from that paper pad I showed before, and I'll have all of the products listed down in the description below for you as always. But that is going to be our main background panel. So I got that trimmed down to be a regular A2 card front size, 5.5 by 4.25. And now I'm laying out my little images, my farm animals, as well as my speech bubbles. Then we'll stamp in all of the different sentiments into it. I could not help myself. You don't have to get the add-on sentiment set, but they're so funny. If you love a good pun sentiment or a lawn fawn pun specifically, these are great. And I still mixed in some of the sentiments from the original pack. I really like the we're here to say. I just think that's so cute and it fits any situation. So I added that one in and then I mixed in a couple of the other ones. I started out by stamping those 3 rectangles first and then went back to add in the sentiments in those 2 ovals. I just thought this was so much easier. You don't have to worry about crowding or any of your stamps like hitting each other. And I was very careful because these main image stamps are so long. I was very careful to make sure that I let them lay completely flat and straight on their own on the paper before I pick them up with the door. That way you know that nothing is warped and it's going to fit in your die correctly. I did not want plain white speech bubbles, and since my background was going to be that pink gingham, I went in with my Copics and started shading in my speech bubbles to be a soft pink that coordinated as pretty decently with my pink gingham. I probably should have added a little bit more of a RV, but in the end I think it's still super cute. And you'll see we're going to bring in a lot more of those pink colors into our Henry's ABCs, like a larger sentiment that's going to go around all of these featured images. So my favorite part of this card was coloring in the critters. They're so small that this is a super quick process, but I still wanted to take my time and give them a lot of detail where I could, especially on this little cow. He's absolutely my favorite. Hands down. He, she, whatever, I don't care. This cow is my favorite. So I started by shading it in with like a white base, so going in with super light gray markers, and then I added the black like cow print spots, and I think it pulls it together so well. I also, you can see, try to duplicate or repeat, I guess is the better word, repeat colors as much as possible. So all the hooves are the same color. The horns on the cow and the goat are the same, and I use that color in the chicken as well. So now I'm adding in those black spots, and I just think that extra little detail really helps bring this little guy to life. I added blush and a little pink to the nose. I decided to go for kind of a red-brown chicken. We used to have chickens. We inherited them with our house when we bought it. The previous owners asked us to keep them and take care of them, and we did for a long time. So I have a special place in my heart for those red-brown chickens. My sheep is gray, but I wanted it to be different from the grays on the cow, so I went with some warm gray markers in a super, super light tones. And again, added in some blush. And then to change it up and just bring in another type of brown, I decided to go with some very cool tone browns, the E70s for my goat, and just shaded him in. The pig is pretty closely colored to the bubbles. I think I added a couple little extra shades there right in the center of his face. I love the facial expressions on lawn fawn's animals and their little characters. So I always try to make sure that however I'm coloring them, you can still really see their eyes and their facial expressions, because that detail is so important to me. For these 3 little party hats, I went with a pink and green color scheme. I knew I was going to be doing a bunch of grass in this card, so I thought the grass with the gingham, it would help to pull everything together. And these tiny hats are the perfect size for these tiny farm critters. And that all the party hat stamp set is amazing because it comes in so many different sizes that I think it literally fits every single lawn fawn image that they make. Whatever size you need, it's in there. And you could also just use them on their own and just like make a party hat themed card. But I love how they look sitting on top of these little critters. So from the Watercolor Wishes stamp set, Watercolor Wishes paper pad, that one, I grabbed this very light sky blue, and I'm going to trim it so that it is the exact length, I guess width across, as my little farm animals. And I'm going to use that as my guide. Then I measured out the coordinating length that it should be so that my frame was the same size all the way around. And I trimmed my grass panel, my green panel, down to be the same. I'm going to kind of hold everything up in place to figure out how long I want my grass panel to be. And at first I thought I was just going to be adding 1 layer of the grass once I cut it with the die. But I ended up using the opposite, like the negative part of the die cut as well, and just kind of flipped it and tucked it in the back so that it's behind the critters, and that way they look nestled in this little pasture. Absolutely cute and a great way to keep using all of your paper. Nothing makes me cry more than having to waste pattern paper or cardstock. I am a definite paper scrap hoarder. I have more than I will ever be able to use, and it makes me sad. So you can see there, I tucked that extra piece in the back. I'm just kind of laying out where I want my 2 grassy panels to meet so that I can tuck my critters behind them. I'm going to hold that in place with some washi tape, and I'm taking a pencil to mark where that blue sky panel ends. I'm going to trim both layers at once there. Then I'm going to use my tape as a hinge and add some dot adhesive between the layers, squish them together so I can remove the tape, and then I can add that grassy panel right on top of the sky, and everything will look super cohesive. I'm just going to sneak peek you now and let you know that I did not line up my Henry's ABCs on the bottom the way that I wanted to, so we're actually going to peel that layer off. It was very handy that I used that dot adhesive, which gives you a little time to move things around, because we're going to be lifting that off and trimming it and reapplying it. I did add in my little critters with liquid glue, my Lawn Fawn glue tube. I was holding my hats in place to make sure that I had room for them between them and my bubble letters, my bubble words, I guess. I added their little hats back in with that liquid glue, just kind of tilting them to the side so that they kind of fit their little farm animal heads. So cute. And now I'm starting to die cut out my larger sentiment, which is hey there, but with hay spelled like straw hay, not like hey. Such a nerd. These kind of sentiments just make me so happy. So I added the same tape that I used to hold my dies in place afterwards to the back of my die cut strip so that I could add all of my letters back in puzzle piece style. And we're going to add some Copic colors to the bottom to create a really fun pink to white ombre that I think really helps to pull everything in together. So to do this, I just take my markers all the way across all of the letters, starting at the bottom, and then repeat that, blending up as I go. I think this gives the most uniform and really like appealing look. My letters are even mixed up. They're not in the order that they're gonna appear. So I know that they're gonna all look right, all lined up together. I'm gonna lay out the hey and the there, but I quickly realized this was pretty, but it wasn't standing out enough for me. So I decided to die cut them a second time from white cardstock again, and this time just leave the cardstock plain. Then I went in with my liquid glue and I stacked them all. So I have this sped up pretty good. We're just going to stack, and I'm offsetting them slightly so that you can see a little hint of the plain white cardstock coming from underneath. This was a little bit of a tedious process, but absolutely worth it to me. It really, the little bit of extra height it gives, as well as that white border along one side, or I guess two sides, a side and a bottom, really helps to make it pop off of the grass and the sky and really helps it to stand out. There's just a lot going on in this card, and I think that it really helps to ground the letters and also make them pop, and honestly even a little easier to read. Maybe not necessary, but a fun added detail that really only took me a couple extra minutes. So once I get all of my letters lined up, I will lay out my center letter for each word first and let that kind of guide my curve. And it worked out great for this top one, probably because it's only 3. It did not work for me on this bottom there, right? I don't know if it's because the E being in the middle and that R feels so bold. Somehow I managed to get the there a little off center. So my solution for that, in the end, I feel like my letters were pushed a little bit too far to the left. So what I'm going to end up doing is pulling this panel off, trimming some from the left, and then moving the whole panel over so it's just a little bit smaller than the background like grass, and then it has just like an equal sized little frame of grass on each side. So I probably could have left it, but it bothered me enough to try, and it worked. So I wanted to leave this in here in case you're ever in a situation like this where like your liquid glue is already dried on some of your letters. If you start from scratch, you're probably going to tear something. So don't, just try to think in the moment and maybe keep this idea in your back pocket in case you have a situation like this, as something in your arsenal where you can just trim off a little bit and add it back to the front and kind of create your own center. So a little more dot adhesive, and I popped it right back into place, and now it looks pretty close to perfect to me. So this whole thing will get popped onto a side folding A2 size card base. And I did go in with my sand eraser just to help remove any extra adhesive that might have gotten in a weird spot. I'm so grateful that you came to hang out with me. I hope you're feeling super inspired. Please let me know if you got something from the newest Lawn Fawn release. I'd love to see it. And yeah, until next time, guys, thank you so much. Happy crafting.